Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Happy April 19th. So good to see a couple people here so far. Hoping for a good turnout, as always, so we can chat about some midwifery and birth-related things together here for a little while. I thought I would pull a card to start. That's always a nice way to ease in and kind of let people on. I enjoy it. So the deck I've pulled from before. I really like it. I have one here. It's called Roots and Wings. It's very beautiful. And so let's see what our card is for this week and talk a little bit about what's going on. Also, before I pull a card, or kind of while I'm doing that, if you want to chime in, hey, Valerie. Yes, chime in like Valerie. Tell me that you're here. I'll see your name. You could say where you're from if I don't know. And that always feels really good, because otherwise it feels like you're talking into an abyss. And I'm never used to that, no matter how many of these I do. It's very odd. It's a very odd feeling. You know, podcasts, I assume, of course, that's not meant to be watched. And I just do that on my own time and kind of talk to myself. But this is a little different. Hello, Madeline. Hi, Jill. So nice to see you. Alexis, hello. Okay, let's pull a card for this little gathering we have here, and maybe for the week. We'll see who it's meaningful to. Oh, sweet. Good fortune. Look at that. It's a beautiful card. So yeah, I feel that. Everybody feeling good on this Monday? We have good fortune on our side. Right? Maybe a little pendulum swing from the last couple of weeks, just astrologically, and I know in my own personal life, feeling like things have been kind of hard, but liking that good fortune card and feeling so much different today, feeling like a lot of the energy has shifted for us personally around some of our moving stuff. So excited to share that update as it becomes more clear. But yeah, I'll stick with good fortune. We're so blessed. We're all here and we're able to spare some time, right, to be on the computer together chatting about birth. That's pretty awesome. And there's a lot of people saying hello. So hello again to everybody joining us. Whether you're new or you are a very reliable every Monday person, you are appreciated. And you are more than welcome to post questions and thoughts. I never know what I'm going to talk about. I don't have an agenda. It's not like a podcast. I don't really have a topic. So it's really whatever people want to hear about today, whatever's feeling relevant for you that I can share on. And let's see, I did ask on the social platform for some ideas. So maybe I'll go back there and see what people said. But you're welcome to post new ones, and I just get to whatever I get to, really. So if you did post a question and I don't get to it, you can always remind me. Nothing personal. Also, this thing is not loading, so never mind. Never mind for now. I do remember some of them. So I think miscarriage and loss was a topic. And I feel like that's appropriate in a sense, because a lot of people, it seems, have been experiencing losses lately. And coincidentally or not, I mean, nothing's a coincidence. Last week on our social and on Instagram, Julie, our lovely Julie, had a couple of posts about loss. We had a new podcast released, one of the Birth Warrior podcasts, and that was a story shared by Athanasia. That was her story about her daughter who died at about 20-something weeks and her experience. So that got shared last week, and I know a lot of people found that really meaningful and beautiful to see, even the photo of her daughter that we had on Instagram. And then, yeah, just other posts, about loss and people sharing. So I don't know, things seem to happen more at certain times. And I'm not quite sure, I don't know that anyone expected me to, have all the explanations as to why. It seems like there's a lot of that lately. Just this morning, I heard from a former client who doesn't live here anymore, but she thought she was experiencing a loss. So it's kind of been coming in from all angles. And if you are on the social, I'm sure you've seen the same posts of people sharing, a lot of stillbirths lately, just there on the social in the last year, I would say even. And it feels surprising, from a statistical standpoint, because statistically, that should be rare. And it's not rare in a sense. So I think the state of the world feels to me like it has a lot to do with it. And I hope no one takes that the wrong way. Like, there's nothing that we as women, I believe, it's nothing we're doing wrong. Like, sometimes babies have a shorter lifespan than we want, and I certainly would never want anyone to feel blamed for that. I mean, I've been in that position myself, and I know those feelings come up just naturally. Like, you don't need anyone to blame you. You sometimes feel bad, and you sometimes feel guilty, and like there's something you could have done. And, even though the state of the world is crazy and there is just a collective fear that's palpable right now, I'm not saying I think that's the reason. It's just, maybe an external manifestation of this death awareness. But I don't know, is it happening more? Is more miscarriage happening right now? Is more loss? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I only know what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing and what I'm feeling. But in the big picture, I really don't know. And, maybe it's not even helpful to say that or to make that assumption. But in our small community, it feels like there's been a lot lately. And so my heart goes out to all of you and all of the women that have experienced loss, especially lately. And that's not been my personal experience lately, but I think we're all being called to sit in a certain level of darkness right now. And I don't know how long that's going to go on. That's something I've been feeling really frustrated about. I won't lie. And this is not on the topic of loss, this particular part, but just the world, just the state of the world, the sheeple, that's not nice, but like, I'm just so done. I'm so done with seeing people do stupid things. I'm so done with the lack of thinking and ability to make one's own choices. I feel just so incredibly done. And with having moving on the horizon, I don't know 100% yet where we'll wind up. And it's like, it doesn't even matter in a way as far as this all goes, because we all know that there are pockets of people everywhere that are thinking for themselves, they are standing up for themselves, but it doesn't seem to be the majority. And of course, censorship and all of that is happening too. So it's really hard to get a really solid read on, are there a lot more people like me, like you out there that care about protecting their bodily autonomy and that of their children? There are days where it feels like we're all alone. So I guess I'm here to say you're not alone if you're feeling that way. I have felt alone for sure. And with moving somewhere new, I feel extra anxious. Really? Like, that's not fun. Extra anxious about what might be awaiting us. Here we at least have a tiny community of people that feel the same way. We have our select stores we can go to. I took Belgium out to breakfast this morning at like the one restaurant. I mean, maybe there's two. The one restaurant where you don't have to wear a mask. And so, we've found our little bit of comfort here because we know people and we've been here a long time, but it's not that way everywhere. And so anticipating just that, like, what is a cross-country trip even going to look like for us? We'll get through it somehow. But then once we land, where will we find our community? Will we find our community? And I know we will. Moving is just always hard. And it, I think, has always made me feel anxious in that way. You're going from knowing people to not knowing people, and that brings up its own stuff. But now with all of this to deal with, it's even more important, and it sounds so trivial, but it's not. And I would imagine a lot of you agree with that. It's not trivial. I don't want to be around people that want to poison themselves with, this shot or in any other way. And I think worrying or reflecting on the effects that that's possibly going to have on everyone's health is a real thing. So I'll kind of wind it back to loss because on our platform, this question came up as something to talk about. And again, I don't have the answers. I'm not pretending to know. I think it's is contributing at the moment, and possibly, the decisions that other people are making about their bodies are affecting those of us that don't want that. We don't want to be injected with stuff, but shedding could be a real thing, or is it? And I guess that's where I wind up, because the actual physical living in the world right now is harder, right, for all of us than it's ever been for all of these reasons. But then should we take the bigger view at times, even just to save ourselves frustration, right? And by the bigger view, I mean, if it's happening, it's required. And I do believe that. So I have to catch myself in like the anxiety of these like little things going on and kind of back up and say, I asked to be here. So did you. We asked to be here. Our children asked to be here. Why though? Like, are we supposed to make more changes than we're doing? Are we supposed to speak up more than we're doing? Or are we just supposed to be here? And I think, I don't know, some days I feel like, no, we're here to create the new world. And other days it's like, I don't even know. We're just here and we're witnessing this, and it's frustrating. But yeah, as far as the choices people are making affecting other people and their health, I think that is a real possibility. As far as that being tied to loss, I think anything's possible. But I guess another question I had, and I had this conversation with someone briefly on our social, was how much do our belief systems influence our actual reality? And I know that they do. I live my life, or I try to, in that way. Beliefs are a very real thing. And it's not just believing it. It's not just having the thought. It's like bathing yourself in the vibration of whatever belief you have. So I think that can be helpful, and it potentially could be harmful. So if we want to adopt the belief, loss, if there's an increase in miscarriage, it's happening because, other people are getting this shot. and those of us that aren't are just getting the ill effects. That's possible. So I guess the question is, do you want to believe that? And there is no right answer. You can choose to believe that, and your reality might reflect that belief. For me, and I'm not in a position where I'm going to get pregnant, at least not anytime soon. I think I'm choosing to not believe that my body is whole and healthy, and that other people's choices are theirs to make, and they can hold that vibration of whatever it is they're injecting into their system. I'm not going to believe that it's going to harm everyone, because that belief is not helpful to me. And at this point, we're very far from any kind of science, whatever that means anymore, proving anything anyhow. So, miscarriage, loss. It is sad. It happens a lot. It might be happening a lot more now for a variety of reasons that we can understand and maybe we can't understand. But in the end, it's something that has always happened. And I think just being there for each other and holding space and listening and understanding is really the best we can do. And I always say, I wouldn't wish it on anyone. You never wish for someone to have that experience, but it is a sacred circle. It is a sacred circle of women that have lost. And, whether you think of your immediate virtual circle here or back through your ancestors, your grandma, your great grandma, it's something that has always been a part of childbearing and being a woman. So it doesn't make it any less hard. And certainly, life feels so much more complicated right now. But getting clear for yourself, especially if you are someone that has had a loss recently, maybe trying your best to just tune out all this craziness in the world and finding your center is the best advice. Being pregnant in this last year was an experience I had, and it wasn't easy. So I really have been there in the midst of all this. I do think pregnancies are seeming more challenging in all of the ways, emotionally, physically, mentally. They are. It's different. Something is different now. And again, it could just be the mass consciousness. And we're all susceptible to feeling that, so we try our best to stay in our own bubble, hopefully, but we still live in the world. And it's just a tricky thing. And I don't know, like I said, I don't have any predictions. If I was being really optimistic, this would all go away sooner than later, but I'm not sure that that's the case. And I'm not sure that those are the lessons that we are needing, I guess. So sorry for the sort of rant on that, but also not sorry, because I do think it ties into, all of the things we're talking about. And it's true, I don't have a lot of in-person clients right now because we are moving, but I have seen and felt things change the last year. And I've heard a lot of midwives say that. So midwives that have been really busy, for example, the last year have said it's been a hard year. It's been a very hard year of births, lots of, just strange stuff and complicated stuff. And so I don't know. I don't know what my point is exactly with that, except it ties in a little bit. Yes. So what other questions do people have? I don't know that there's more to say about that. Excuse me. Procreation philosophy. Wow, Kathleen. That's a very beautiful statement. So tell me more about what you mean there, Kathleen, if you would. I'm happy to blab. Alexis, 13 moons is really for anyone. I think it is very valuable for birth workers. We've had lots of doulas, lots of midwives go through it. And Margot and I usually say that we wish everybody would take it, especially younger women that are nowhere near having a baby, teenagers. It's just information really about being a woman. And even if you're never going to birth a baby, if you're supporting women, then yes, super valuable, because not only will you have more education about possibilities, but you can also, pass on what you learn to a certain extent, and also get them to sign up for it, because, it's still pay what you can. So it's indiebirth.org/13 moons. So the number 13 moons. And no, you're not being ridiculous. Yeah, there's all kinds of people in there, all kinds of people that haven't had babies, people that are between having babies. I know that people really enjoy it. So we'd love for you to do that. Yeah, I'm having like a total brain freeze at the moment with other questions that people had posted on the social. And for whatever reason, I'm not able to get there at the moment. So I'm going to rely on you all for questions. Birth control. Yeah, that's a big topic. Yeah, I don't know how much that comes up here other than the obvious stuff, in the postpartum usually, right? And most of my clients, even the ones that, I just worked with for 9 full months and they've had a great birth, probably most of them are not really up on fertility awareness, I have to say. That's something I've been really surprised about generally, like in the clients I work with, and also women in general. Like, it's amazing to me how little women know about their fertility and how and when, to get pregnant or to avoid pregnancy. It's kind of mind-boggling because it's really not that hard. So if you are in 13 moons, there is information in there about charting your cycle. And I would highly recommend, even if you're never going to get pregnant or, whatever, fertility awareness isn't really birth control the way I see it. I mean, it can be used in that way, but it's really just knowing your own body so that you can fully make a choice with whatever way you're going to go. My daughters know a little bit, and I have been bugging them, actually. They're almost 19, almost 15. They both have cycles. I've been bugging them for a couple of months now to start charting. And then, we can kind of like do it together and like look over what they're doing or what they're learning, because we're pretty open in our house about sex and all of that. And, neither of them have gotten to that point yet, but my goal in helping them chart would be so they understand their bodies. There's a lot of people out there, I mean, not just teenage girls, honestly, like women, grown women that don't know their bodies and do emergency contraception as a regular habit because they have no idea. So we've had those kind of conversations. They have had friends in that position. And to me, that just seems so unnecessary. Understand your body and then, go from there. And it doesn't mean you have it all figured out. It doesn't mean sometimes your body isn't confusing or whatever. But if you have practice charting a cycle, if you know it's normal for you, you're equating what you see on the paper with what your body is doing, what you're feeling, even emotionally, like that's a huge education. So truthfully, I should spend more time with them on that, because I don't know that they're actually going to do it without me prodding them more. Like, one of them has a thermometer, the other one doesn't. So I could be more helpful. I should like print out the pages and get them thermometers and have a little class. That would be the most proactive thing. And I think they want to do it. I don't necessarily force it on them if they didn't, but I think it's really important. The oldest at least has a couple of books. She has, I always forget, is it the 5th vital sign? and Taking Charge of Your Fertility is an awesome book. So to kind of get back to the immediate question is, how do we share? How do we educate? So that, I think, recommending these books, although truthfully with my clients when they're in the postpartum, when we have, a talk about birth control or cycles, I don't think anyone is running out to buy these books, especially in the postpartum. It's a very weird time in a sense to learn about this, because while you're breastfeeding, your body can give mixed signals. If you don't know your normal signals, it's harder to do breastfeeding. There's a lot of myths out there, as you know, even among smart, educated women that have had a home birth. So many of my clients, into their postpartum will text me and say, whatever, oh, can I get pregnant breastfeeding? And I'm like, I guess we didn't talk about this, because I assume, sometimes I make assumptions and I assume people know certain things about fertility and they don't. So the goal would be to help educate our girls better. Get pregnant, then, and they want to get pregnant, then on the other side, they can work with the fertility awareness and breastfeeding and not feel like they're starting from absolute ground zero. Most women that have just had a baby don't want to have another baby within months. So it's a time of panic for some. I have so many clients whose cycle comes back at 6 weeks, 3 months, whatever. And that's another interesting topic, because I feel like that didn't used to happen as much, in the general group of people that I have worked with. And as a student, right, we all learned the lactational amenorrhea method. So if you don't know what that is, go look it up. But there's a couple of criteria that if you meet them, so if your baby's under 6 months old, if you're exclusively breastfeeding, blah, 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 there's all kinds of criteria there. If you are meeting those criteria, you really shouldn't ovulate. You shouldn't get a cycle back. So it's not birth control, but it's like a piece of the puzzle in understanding your body. Anyway, my point is, I see more and more women lately who seem to be meeting the criteria as best as I can tell, and they still get a cycle back super early. So I don't know what that's about. I mean, it could be related to the environment. It could be related to the food we eat. But yeah, that can be shocking when someone texts you at, 7 weeks postpartum and they're like, I think I'm bleeding and I think this is a cycle. It's like, okay, well, no time like the present. Better come up with an immediate plan for yourself, even if it's, condoms or some kind of just barrier method. And if you want to learn fertility awareness, then you could do that alongside. But I wouldn't just rely on what you're learning now if you already have a cycle, because there's a lot to take in. And I think it's really just knowing your own body. Me personally, I've had my cycle come back after a year, most typically. And then I've gotten right into pregnancies even without a cycle. I knew 500% that I was ovulating and I got pregnant. And so I had many years consecutively without actually bleeding. And then with Cove, right before Rumi, my cycle came back at 5 months. But she was a pacifier baby, which none of mine were. So I do think that played into it. And then it went away for a little bit. It came back at 5 months. It went away for 2. And then it was just totally regular. And then I got pregnant with Rumi when she was about a year. So if you have enough babies, I think you certainly do learn your normal. If you haven't, if you only have one, or maybe, you just don't quite know each time what your body will do. And I know for me, after Cove, I did do vaginal steaming. That was the first postpartum I did that. It was also the earliest cycle I got back. So I don't know if those two things are related, but I always share that because I don't really know what that was about. Oh. Sorry, Margot. So yeah, cycles after birth. yeah, I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at. And again, I've offered to so many clients, and again, here they are with a new baby. So I get it. It's like not personal or anything, but people don't really want to learn about that. I found when they're in the postpartum, they don't seem to want to learn. So I don't have the solution then. It's just like, well, I guess be careful and do what you would normally do. And yes, you can get pregnant while you're breastfeeding. And yes, you can get pregnant while you're breastfeeding all night and your baby never leaves your side and never leaves your boob. It totally can happen. And I'll never forget a client a long time ago who I helped with her second baby. And when the baby was 4 months, she got pregnant. And I don't really remember. I mean, she must have had symptoms, or something, right? Because I don't know that she had gotten a cycle back, but she did get pregnant, like right off the bat. Maybe she had symptoms, but I remember her coming over to my house and feeling her belly, feeling her, tiny little uterus. And she was only like 4 months postpartum. So, she probably got pregnant at 2 months postpartum. Honestly, she was a little bit along, and that was very shocking. And her kids are very close. So, totally does happen. Yeah, Isabel, I totally agree. It is a total travesty, and it's enough to get you so angry and fired up, which I think for people like us is good, because each of us could really do so much to teach this, to people that wanted it. Even if you just had a group, I've thought about that. I'm kind of preoccupied at the moment. My girls are kind of all I care about teaching at the moment, but I think it's a great community activity if you have other parents that are into it. You be the one to teach. Most women don't even know this, so it's a great, it's great, and it's so needed, and it's so stupid that they don't teach this, but I think it really is on purpose because it keeps people very powerless. It keeps women powerless to their own bodies. It keeps them relying on the system and, the patriarchy, all of the great stuff. It keeps us reliant on everybody else outside of our bodies. So you could take so many angles into teaching girls. And yeah, it's like sex, like do young girls want to talk about their cycle? I mean, a lot of the times, no, although in our house we do. But, it can be taboo. It can be something that has a lot of shame around it. There are so many people that feel that way, that grew up that way, that had their first cycle and were embarrassed. And, we have so much to heal collectively as women. So it's not always the easiest thing to say, like, hey, girls, like, we're going to sit down and do this. We're going to talk about our periods. But after a few giggles and whatnot, I think a lot of girls would get over it. Like I said, I think a lot of mothers, even if they don't know this stuff, might be really grateful that you're willing to do that in your community. Yeah, I know. Cycles are so powerful. And I don't know that my girls feel that way, to be honest. I mean, they're young and they're active and, they're pretty typical in a lot of ways. And I know it can be an inconvenience to them or the way they speak about it. But also just planting the seed that it's really special. And that's your power. That's your absolute power as a woman. And as you get more layered into the conversation, and I know I've had this with my oldest daughter because she's really busy. She has, excuse me, a job. She's an adult. And we've had the conversation about structuring your life more around your cycle, which of course is not a new idea. There's many books written on it, so many great things to read, but just planting that seed. We're not like men. We're not supposed to do the same thing every day, all month. We are supposed to ebb and flow. Our energy ebbs and flows. How we want to be around people changes. Our creative capacity changes. So just putting all of that out there, for her, my oldest, even something as simple as like working out at the gym. It's like she's learned, I think, over time that she has better workouts at certain times of the month and not so great workouts, and she can push through. And then usually she pays the price because we have different ways of being at different times. So all of that I think is so really cool and awesome. And there are a couple podcasts on it, I think. I think. There's one with Lisa Lister, who I adore. If you don't know her books, you should totally check them out. Lisa Lister, she's a really powerful, amazing woman in the UK that almost primarily writes about cycles and this kind of stuff. And her writing is fun and easy to read. So that's another plus. So the temperature in the postpartum is going to be, pre-ovulatory. I mean, most likely, right? Because you haven't ovulated yet. So I don't know about immediate postpartum because I've never taken them, but my guess is they're normal, right? Because in pregnancy, they're elevated at least initially. But then anytime we're before ovulation, they should be in the lower range. So the only way you can confirm ovulation, and this is like the take home from most of the books about fertility awareness, the only way to confirm ovulation is with a sustained elevated temperature. So you could do all the guessing you want. I mean, I know my body really well. I could tell if I ovulated without a thermometer like 99.9% of the time, but that's me and my own experience with my body. But if I really wanted to confirm it, the only way I could confirm it is by seeing, two groups of temperatures and a sustained elevated temperature. So the problem with breastfeeding typically is that the temperatures are really erratic. And, again, if you don't know your body, you haven't done a lot of that, and you start right there, I think it seems really confusing. I don't take my own temperature really at all, and I definitely don't in the postpartum while breastfeeding because you're up all the time. Like you're waking up every couple of hours. You don't really ever have the block of sleep that they're probably looking for, that they tell you you need to have before you take it. So moms that are breastfeeding and temperature taking are often really confused unless they know their body super well and they have a lot of experience with that. Because really, truly, you should still see the two ranges. If you do ovulate, you should see that, but you might miss it. And all the erratic temperatures might lead you to think you did ovulate when you didn't, or vice versa. Yeah, I don't know, Emma. I mean, there's all kinds of apps, as I'm sure you're aware. And way back, a bunch of years ago, I did chart a little bit after my late miscarriage. I was just like really feeling controlling around seeing what my body was doing, if it would get right back into cycling. And I didn't want to miss it, even though things felt pretty much the same. So yes, there's all kinds of apps and charts in books, and I'm sure people have better resources to share if there's anything more current than that. But yeah, that's a great topic for today. Thanks, Kathleen. There's so much to say about that. And I don't talk about it a lot. Of the two of us, Margot is kind of like the fertility awareness one of us for whatever reason. I don't know. She's probably done a lot more studying than me. And she probably did it longer, like in her life, I think, before looking to have a baby. So yeah, she knows a whole lot. But I know a decent amount, and I know, kind of like the rules and how to teach it. But there's definitely advanced learning and advanced situations that a lot of people know a lot more about than I do. And yeah, there's all kinds of books. Jill's recommending one. There's The Garden of Fertility, I believe, is another one. And like I said, The Fifth Vital Sign, all of Lisa Lister's books. I can't even think of some of the names of them now. Alexandra Pope has a book. Yeah, there's all kinds of like feminine power and cycle books. So thank God, right? There's no shortage of that, of those books these days. So no reason not to check them out or whatever, have a little lending library or teach teenagers or your daughters or your cousins, whatever it is. Cool. Yeah, you all share your best ideas about apps because I am not up on that. And that's also a very smart thing, Alexis, to think about Yeah, not just the bodily signs, but also looking at the moon is great. And you could chart all kinds of things, like I said. And who else has great books? Lucy Pierce is another one of my authors that I really enjoy. I think she's okay. And she has a great book for girls on cycles called, oh dear, Drawing Down the Moon. I don't know. Pierce, Pearce, Lucy Pierce. She's on Instagram. She's got a whole range of books like in her publishing company that are just kick ass. And yeah, she has one, Drawing Down the Moon. I don't know. There's a like a woman version and then like a less complicated sort of like preteen teenager version. And they're all great. And again, it's the emotional, the spiritual connection to not just the moon, but the parts of the cycle. You know, maybe you've heard likening the parts of the cycle to the seasons of the year and how that reflects our inner state. So I think that's all super cool. It makes it so much more fun and interesting too. Although, you know, you could totally just teach the basics and that would probably be super helpful. And then all of this other stuff is as you get deeper into it and as people get more curious about their bodies and how it actually feels to be in a woman's body, which I think is so much of all of that. So I don't have a cycle yet back after Rumi. To be honest, I don't care. I wasn't really hoping it would come back early, especially with all that we have going on moving. It just, yeah, seems more inconvenient at the moment, which might sound terrible, but that's just the honest truth. So I'm sure it will come back eventually. And to answer your question, Kathleen, conscious conception. Yeah, I mean, I love that phrase, and I've wondered about that because that feels like a newer phrase to me. And to me, that means like being aware that you're able to conceive, talking to spirit babies, fun stuff like that. All of our children, you know, honest to goodness, were known to us. So, you know, no judgment if that hasn't been the case for people. You know, being surprised by a pregnancy was always something I wanted to experience in a sense. You know, like that might sound silly, but like I've always been so aware of ovulation and all of that I never could have missed it. So I've had moments where, you know, you see other women get pregnant and they don't know till they're like 7 or 8 weeks. And I remember just thinking like, wow, I wonder what that would be like to really not know. And then, you know, you don't have to obsess as much and like those weeks kind of just like float by. But I've never had that experience. The closest I've ever come was with Rumi. And I knew, so the story there is, yes, it was surprising, but it wasn't like a complete impossibility. I ended up just ovulating earlier than I had been. So that's a newbie mistake though, I have to admit. But I didn't really care at the same time. We didn't care. We were open to it. So it wasn't like, oh, whoops, you know, we weren't wanting that. It just happened and that was fine. And I was really surprised because, yeah, not only did I ovulate earlier, but, you know, your chances of getting pregnant in any given month, especially when you're in your 40s, really isn't that high. So I didn't really think much of it, you know, and I didn't think at all I was pregnant. I didn't have a moment of, you know, we just conceived. Nope, nothing. And when my period didn't show up, I was very shocked. And that was really the only time. And even then, I didn't have great reason to be shocked. I was. But that's kind of been Rumi's MO too, as I've shared. He's a little magic baby. So he just kind of snuck in there. And that was that. Yeah, that's a great question. How do we tune into the feminine cycle while we're not cycling? You know, and I should reflect on that because I'm not right now. And also, you know, all of us, myself included, are headed to the direction of life where we're not. So, you know, I've thought about that, of course, like how do we kind of frame our lives? And I think that's such a great question for an elder too. And I don't consider myself that at this point. But those of you that are in that phase of life of, being through menopause, and in that real crone stage, like that's a great question. How does your life feel now? And how does a lack of cycle? My guess is it doesn't feel like a lack. That's my guess, but it must shift and reshape itself. Yeah, I think it is in the postpartum, it is harder to honor. There is the moon, of course, which I do tend to pay attention to. I could probably pay more attention. I'm pretty aware most months of the new moon and the full moon. So I think that's a great opportunity to do whatever is important to you or not. Creation, manifestation, letting things go. These are all appropriate things for different phases of the moon. And you can still have that awareness. You can still have those ceremonies in your life, even if you're not ovulating, even if you're not bleeding. But it might feel harder in a sense. But not everybody's linked up to the moon in their cycle anyway, right? Like that's what they say is ideal, but it's not always the way it goes. So paying attention to the cycles of the moon, paying attention to the cycles of the earth, I think is a practice that I have. And I've never thought about it like that. It's not to like replace the fact that I am not experiencing a cycle within my own body, but it does feel good, to honor like a cycle of any kind. I think there's just something human about that in a sense, right? It's like something to grasp onto. It's something to like make sense of, we're in spring, summer is coming, that kind of thing. Steaming is another great thing. I really do like steaming, and I haven't done a whole lot lately in this part of the postpartum, but that's another thing you could get into the habit of doing, on a cyclical flow. Even if you're not cycling. And who knows, it might bring your cycle back sooner, it might not, I have no idea. But those are all really cool questions, and I've enjoyed that. Sweet. Well, this is usually about the time frame we do when we hang here. So thanks for the great topics. Kathleen, Isabel, Jill, everybody, Alexis, everybody that contributed. That was really unexpected, but really fun, and something I think we're all going to go away thinking a little bit more about today. I know I am. It's a great opportunity to just reflect on how that fits into our own lives and how we might get this out into the community. I think, again, that is so valuable. Isabel, you, and whoever else of you is out there that want to teach that, you should totally find a way to do it. Or, it doesn't even have to be teach, just like gather. And that's, of course, what a new moon circle might be, or a full moon circle. Women, of course, can gather in all the ways, and maybe cycle discussions is part of it. One more thing I wanted to share. I'll never forget, a bunch of years ago, I went to a conference, a birth conference in Canada. I was speaking there, and I participated. I got the honor of participating in whatever other sessions I wanted. And one of the sessions was everybody sitting together in this big yurt, so around a giant circle. And I don't know, there might have been 50 women at this particular session. And we all went around and shared the story of our first bleeding. And it was really beautiful and emotional, and it was sad, and it was happy. And honestly, I had never spoken that out loud before. I had never spoken the story, which most of them weren't really that eventful, and sadly included more feelings of like shame and embarrassment than anything. But, speaking the truth and getting out there and hearing other women's stories was really powerful. So for me, I remember, obviously, my first cycle was, I think I was 13, and my mom, it was a Saturday, my mom was out somewhere when I got up, and I realized I was bleeding. And I went to my neighbor's house. I went to my best friend. Well, she was one of my best friends. She was a little bit younger than me, but she had already had her cycle. And I went over to her house because I knew what it was, but I wasn't prepared for it. And I was kind of shocked, and I was too embarrassed to tell my dad, which, I don't know that I would even do that nowadays. Like, he just would not be great on the receiving end of that. So anyway, that's an idea too. Just have a circle, get women together, have some snacks, and just sit in a circle and share these experiences and have them become the things that we speak out loud and aren't afraid to anymore. There's so much healing in that. And that's ultimately what I felt. I'm sure I cried too in telling my own short story and just receiving. I mean, some women had really beautiful stories of honoring their cycle, but most women didn't. It was just something they barely remembered. So women in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, sharing this was amazing. So yeah, what if we did that? What if we shared the stories? And what if we had young girls in that circle too, that heard the stories and knew that when it was their time, they would be invited to share, and that they would be probably more supported, right, than any of us had been in our own first bleeding. So it's also beautiful and so poignant and true power. It really is. It makes me feel just better about everything we've talked about today, from miscarriage to the state of the world. Like, we are so powerful, and we survive pretty much everything, from miscarriage to all of it. Like, women are so amazing. So yes, gather all of you in your own communities. We'll gather here. Oh, I have a footnote. Next Monday, I will not be doing this. So I will resume in May. Next week, we are taking a very unprecedented trip on a boat with our kids and some friends. So I will not be here next Monday. We are going to be enjoying the Arizona landscape for probably one of the last times, at least for a long time. So we're going to be there on a boat. So I won't see you here, but I will see you back in May. So have a great 2 weeks, and thanks for being here. It's been so fun. Have a beautiful day, everybody.